Hi YouTube, this is Eden, and I help Black beautypreneurs create their first natural hair and skin products for sale. And it's taken me a while to respond to this because I didn't want to just go into the anger and the disappointment regarding the Shea Moisture ad and their subsequent apology. I just wanted to frame it in a way that was relevant to us as Black beautypreneurs, because there's enough outrage from the consumer perspective. But as entrepreneurs, how do we look at it from a different perspective? Okay, so the first thing, I'm not going to go into the saga. You can YouTube search Shea Moisture ad, Shea Moisture apology, and you will get the scoop. But basically they created a very questionable ad, and they got a lot of feedback from it, and were dragged through these digital streets, all through Black Twitter, all through Facebook, all through YouTube, by their edges, so to speak, and it was quite nasty. And I'm not saying that the feedback they got was not deserved. It was a poor choice on a lot of levels. However, I just want to start off by at least acknowledging Shea Moisture as an industry leader and really understanding that they were able to open up a space for us as Black beautypreneurs that benefits us now, that will benefit us in the future. They really were able to cater to the natural hair audience, and in turn also grow that audience so that when you sell your products, you have more people to sell to because of Shea Moisture. So we can't forget that. I mean, you know, they have Target on lock. A few weeks ago, one of my good friends, we've been friends for a while, since college, and she texted me and she was like, man, I went to Target and Shea Moisture has this bad boy on lock, you know. And they do, not just in the hair care aisle, but in skincare and so forth. So they're really doing a lot. They're in Safeway, they're in Fry's here in Arizona, and other parts of the US it might be Kroger stores. That is unheard of, to have a Black brand catering to Black people in those aisles of those stores, but not in the little Black section, you know, the little section of the shelf that we get. We don't even get a full shelf, like the section of the shelf in the grocery store. That is pretty amazing. And once they were in, they opened up the room for a few other brands to get in. There's a new travel section at the Safeway across from where I live, and in that travel section, Shea Moisture had its own shelf of travel stuff, whether it be the curl enhancing smoothie, whether it be the lotions and potions and whatnot. Travel size Shea Moisture in there with like Dove and Colgate and all the brands we recognize. That is huge. That is huge. Okay, so now because they did that, other brands are going to be able to do that. So we just can't just kind of throw that away as if now it doesn't matter, you know. Now, yes, they sold part of their company to Sundial Brands, but it still is majority Black owned. So, you know, there still is a portion of, when we say Shea Moisture is canceled, Shea Moisture is canceled, we're canceling a Black brand, a Black owned brand that's creating Black hair products for Black people. And that's huge. So we just can't ignore that, you know. But in all of that, what do we learn as beautypreneurs? We covered that bit, but what can we learn from this fiasco? Okay, so the first thing is, do not make poor marketing decisions. I know that sounds basic, but specifically what? I feel like Shea Moisture wanted to expand its clientele before they had actually fully dominated their main clientele. They started in the Black hair care niche. There are people in Africa, in several countries. There are people in Australia. There are people in Europe, all over Europe. There are people, you know, in the Middle East who will pay $20, or I didn't even cover the Caribbean or Latin America, where there are a lot of people who have Afro-textured hair or who have very tight curls or even loose curls, right? Somehow because of African descent, or just sometimes because that's their hair type. All those people, they hadn't sold those people yet. They hadn't dominated that niche. People there are paying $20 to $25 a bottle for a product that we pay $9 to $11 for in Target. Okay, so they haven't dominated their market. I don't know why they were going for other areas of the market without actually fully dominating their own market. There are ways to expand that would have been much easier, that would not have required a second campaign. Okay, it would just require creating some relationships and with a manufacturer on those continents, and having that manufacturer ship to a distributor on those continents, and having a marketing person who didn't even need to live there. They could live in the United States, coordinate with department stores and drugstores on those continents. They would have been able to make progress without alienating their base. They didn't do that. I mean, I just don't understand why that did not happen. The second thing is, okay, Sundial Brands is, a white-owned umbrella company. And I don't know if you remember the election cycle of 2012 here in the United States, but Mitt Romney was Barack Obama's opponent on the Republican side. And one of the things that he had done prior to becoming a politician was he had been, I believe, CEO of Bain, the Bain Group, which was the company that owns Sundial Brands, or which Shea Moisture partially sold to. So I remember there being a point, I don't know if you remember this, where he was being criticized for, let me change the exposure on this really quick because it's kind of bright. Anyway, there was a part where he was accused of not being that pro-women or being, helping women at all. And he was like, well, when I was working at all these different companies, we had binders full of women, binders of women that I've hired. Well, that just kind of struck me. As soon as I saw Bain Capital, I was like, oh, shoot. This sounds like Mitt Romney and binders full of women, because Bain is one of the companies he ran. He bought and then he grew it and then he sold it or something. And so these binders full of women did not do a good job, okay? So it turns out that the marketing department at Sundial consists of a lot of white women. So I'm not going to go into that in terms of their marketing, choosing to take on marketing to black women. But I believe that anyone who's a marketing maven can market to any group of people. And the second lesson you can learn from this is don't be lazy in your marketing, because they clearly were not in the forums. They clearly did not study the reviews of things. They clearly did not understand the climate around black hair, and they did not understand their customer base, okay? And they didn't understand niching down. Why would you want to sell to everybody? Why wouldn't you just create a separate new line for white women? Nobody would have cared, at least not to this degree. It just doesn't make any sense. There were just so many mistakes that they made from a marketing perspective, whether it be not niching down fully and creating separate lines for separate people, or just sticking to their own niche and expanding within that niche like I mentioned before. Just not doing their research and not understanding who they were speaking to, and also just another thing is, you don't want to bet against black people and you don't want to bet against black dollar. There's a basic assumption that we're all tapped out in the black market. There isn't enough money in an industry that is just hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars per year, just in the United States, never mind worldwide. How could you think that you're tapped out of black dollars? It just doesn't make any sense. I think that we have to understand that as black people, we have a lot more money than we realize. You know, people on the continent of Africa. Sorry, there was a truck going by. People on the continent of Africa are also buying expensive things like wigs and weaves and paying for perms. All of that costs money. It doesn't cost any less because it's in Africa. It costs the same amount of money. You know, people in Australia are doing it. People, you know, in the Caribbean are doing it. People in Puerto Rico are doing it. Okay, people in Brazil are doing it. So it just makes no sense. We have to stop thinking so small, and we have to think bigger. Okay, and we have to understand that there's more out there, and that we can own the things that we consume. We can do it, Black people. We can own the things that we consume. So just let that be a thought as you're, going out there. Niche down. Don't try to brand to everybody. Don't insult your base. If you are creating a product for hair loss, don't have a woman with a full head of hair on the picture. People can't relate to that. If you're doing something for 4C hair, don't have, someone who does not look like a 4C hair person on the picture. I mean, just basic things like that. And I know it seems basic, but people forget all the time. They think, oh, I'm going to create a product for natural hair and relaxed hair. I'm going to create a product for this and that. No, you can create two separate things for that. But don't try to feel like you have to grab all the dollars when you haven't even grabbed the dollars within your niche. So that's my 2 cents on the Shea Moisture thing in terms of us educating ourselves as Black beautypreneurs. I didn't want to participate in the Twitter dragging. I feel like they've been beaten up enough, and I honestly, as a Black entrepreneur, hope that they recover, because it benefits me to have a strong Shea Moisture in the picture. It benefits me to have a strong such and such brand in the picture. It benefits you too. But those are things that we can learn from them, from their mistake, so that we can move on more positively and with grace, instead of just tearing each other down. All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.